Red 2 standing by, all 4 lit and in the green. Welcome back to Goldeneye. We are onto a bit of a toughie today. The mission we're undergoing is in the archives, the GRU Military Intelligence Archives, where Bond was taken after the destruction of the helicopter in Statue Park. Bond and Natalia are meant to be interrogated there, but Bond gets into an argument with Mishkin, though Natalia is the one who actually provides a level head and gives Mishkin the info he needs to know, which basically labels Ourumov as a traitor. Mishkin unfortunately doesn't get to act on this because Ourumov quickly shoots him, using Bond's gun, then strips out the magazine and hands it back to Bond before realising, oh wait, hang on, I can actually just get him killed, and there's a whole range of things I can do that will basically humiliate MI6 and make Trevelyan happy, because basically we can pose Bond as the person who killed Mishkin, who blew up the helicopter, and there are going to be a lot of international repercussions and our plan will be fine. You can sort of recognize that he's realizing everything he can do because he's panicking at the time. He shoots Mishkin in a bit of a fury because everything is just about to fall apart if Mishkin gets the information and takes it back to the Politburo. Then it sinks in, and Bond beats the crap out of him and escapes. Bad luck for Ourumov. Anyway, Archives is the home to the game's other ridiculously difficult cheat, invisibility. If you earn this, you've done incredibly well. It's a very tight time on 00 Agent. I'll see how I go, but we're moving on. So, the military archives, our primary objectives: escape from the interrogation room, find Natalia, and escape with Natalia. Captured by the Russians, Bond must escape their military prison. Again? Captured again? I hope you can defend your performance, 007, because there isn't a lawyer in the land who'd take on the case. Your only chance is to speak directly to Defense Minister Mishkin. He's a reasonable man for a member of the Politburo. Failure is not an option, Bond. Up to you to get out of this one, 007. I can't hold your hand all the time. By the way, get that flight recorder for me, would you? Thanks. Banged up again, James. Now you know what it's like to be trapped behind a desk, and I'm off out to the theatre with a gentleman tonight. How times change. Today's lesson will occasionally delve into being an opinion piece, since I'm focusing on the title themes of the Bond movies. We have had quite an array of artists over the years, and one returning performer. The styles have varied and the music has definitely changed with the times, but generally the quality has remained highly consistent. The music has been accompanied by the excellent designs of Morris Binder and Daniel Kleinman, following on from the pre-title sequences which set up each film. It's all part of establishing the feel and style of the individual movies. As time has gone on, the title songs have utilised greater connections to the events of the movies. The lyrics are much closer thematically since around the start of the Brosnan era, and as the Craig era has gone on, a great sense of melancholy has accompanied the songs as well as the movies. Granted, not every piece is a super high energy song which psychs people up, but the title themes generally have a lot of appeal and have been quite popular outside the realm of the movies. As we go, I'll be providing snippets of information about the artists in the little sidebar which gives supplementary details. Naturally, we have to start with the distinctive guitars of the James Bond theme. It's one of those pieces which stands out as instantly memorable, bringing back images of your favourite movies into your mind. Not every part of the series scores will be remembered by most viewers, but the title themes and the overall series theme will make an impact. Like the rest of Dr. No's score, the James Bond theme was composed by Monty Norman, with the behind-the-scenes details about that mentioned in a previous episode. The theme served as a general motif through the first 2 films, alongside the occasional appearances of John Barry's theme 007, which first appeared in From Russia with Love. It was perhaps a little dramatic for some of the mundane situations in which it was used, such as Bond checking his hotel room for bugs and the like, but it has remained a constant for the series and does indeed bring back those great memories. The theme has been remixed a few times, such as Marvin Hamlish's disco arrangement for The Spy Who Loved Me, and it's a testament to how good the Bond theme is that it has endured across the ages no matter what form it's in. The James Bond theme peaked at number 13 on the UK charts and did not enter the US charts. From Russia with Love uses an instrumental variation during the title sequence, perhaps accompanying the distinct style of said sequence. The credits are displayed in lights as such on the midriff of a belly dancer. However, the vocal version by Matt Monro, a slower and more relaxed piece, plays on a radio during the early parts of the film when Bond is having a rendezvous with Sylvia Trench, and is also used for the closing credits of the movie. This was the first film for which John Barry composed the score, and he worked on this theme along with Monty Norman and noted composer Lionel Bart. It's a decent enough song, nice easy listening, but not really anything special. The instrumental version captures a little more flair and excitement, as does the 007 theme, which stood out through this film and was also used in a few other films scored by John Barry. From Russia with Love peaked at number 20 on the UK charts, with no entry in the US charts. Goldfinger was performed by Shirley Bassey, the first of 3 themes she would perform. She remains the only returning artist for the title themes. Just as Goldfinger stepped up in terms of style, spectacle and production budget, so too did the title theme. Goldfinger is big, bold and brassy, a powerful piece that is well served by Bassey's excellent voice. Where From Russia with Love was not that different from a simple love song which one could find in the charts at the time, perhaps a reason it may not have stood out as much, Goldfinger is the series' first example of lyrical connection to the film's events. The lyrics pretty much spell out Goldfinger's obsession and how dangerous the man with the Midas touch can be. It's very fitting, as Goldfinger is indeed one of Bond's smartest adversaries in the cinematic canon. I enjoy this one a lot, it's definitely up there among the best due to its powerful and impactful approach. The brass-driven music works really well and sets a strong standard. The song was composed by Leslie Bricusse and Anthony Newley in addition to John Barry. It peaked at number 21 in the UK charts and 8 in the US, while the soundtrack album hit number 1 and the film received an Oscar for Best Sound Editing due to the way the music connected with the events. As a neat bit of trivia, 2 session musicians who worked on instrumental versions for the film were Jimmy Page and John Paul Jones, who would go on to found Led Zeppelin. That's not too bad. There's an interesting story behind Thunderball's theme being organised, which probably shouldn't surprise any of us given the struggle involved behind the scenes. The theme was originally going to be titled Mr. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, after an Italian journalist's description of Bond. Shirley Bassey recorded a version of this, as did Dionne Warwick, after Bassey's version was considered to be too short for the titles. Bassey sued the producers, what is it with Thunderball and legal battles, and neither version was used. John Barry then wrote the Thunderball we know with lyricist Don Black, and Tom Jones was asked to record it. According to Jones, he closed his eyes on the final note and held it for so long, he felt like the room was spinning when he opened his eyes. Johnny Cash wrote a song titled Thunderball, describing the film's events, but it was not used. It is worth noting that Mr. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang survives in some form through instrumental pieces used throughout the film, and the original recordings have been released. Thunderball hit number 35 in the UK charts and 25 in the US charts. Originally, You Only Live Twice was recorded in a slightly different arrangement by Julie Rogers, but this was considered a demo by the producers. Rogers thought it was a finished version, but in the end the producers went with Nancy Sinatra as the vocalist. Apparently, it took her some time to get the theme right. She was reportedly a bit nervous and asked if they'd rather have her father do it. Nonetheless, the theme came together and is quite a beautiful, relaxed piece, driven by strings compared to the brass of the previous 2 themes. The song was actually rearranged when released as a single, with the soundtrack version being written by John Barry and Leslie Bricusse, and the single release being arranged by Hal Strange. The single version seemed to click quite well with audiences in the UK, reaching number 11 there, but only 44 on the US charts. The main melody of this song was also sampled by Robbie Williams in his song Millennium, so some listeners may be familiar with it through this avenue. On Her Majesty's Secret Service has its title theme composed entirely by John Barry. It is the only one besides Dr. No with an entirely instrumental title theme. From Russia with Love does have that lyrical version used at the end of the film. The theme serves as very good chase music through the ski sequences as well, in addition to a captivating main theme accompanying scenes from past Bond films flowing through hourglasses. Barry made it an instrumental composition as he could not find a way to work the film's title in without the song being apparently in an operatic style a la Gilbert and Sullivan, which probably would have been interesting, definitely, but a bit ridiculous. Peter Hunt allowed this, considering it a bit of a homage to the originals, and thus we have that excellent instrumental that kicks things off. Barry also worked on the film's other famous song, We Have All the Time in the World. Louis Armstrong recorded the vocals, his last recording before his death in 1971. Much like the rest of the film, this song was later re-evaluated as a classic. It barely troubled the charts at the time, but would eventually wind up hitting number 3 on the UK charts. It's a beautiful love theme, fitting in well with the events of the movie, though it's also gained something of a bittersweet air as a result. Diamonds Are Forever does have a very cheesy and kind of camp style, and the title song seems to go in for plenty of innuendo. The lyrics, written by Don Black and accompanied by John Barry's music, seem to have a very suggestive air about them. Shirley Bassey returned for her second official Bond theme after the issues with Thunderball, and frankly she's one of the best things about the film. As you'd expect, her vocals pack plenty of power into a song which seems like a companion piece to Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend, just a little bit more subtly salacious. Diamonds are a girl's best friend and a dog is apparently man's best friend, and I frankly think men got ripped off with that one. There was also an Italian version recorded by Bassey for the end credits of that country's dub. I have to be honest, this isn't a favourite. It's not bad, but it doesn't stand out as much to me. It's kind of hemmed in between two very outstanding title themes, and it's stuck with a bit of a dud of a movie as far as the series goes. It didn't chart too well either, hitting 38 on the UK charts and only 57 on the US charts, but it is part of Shirley Bassey's live shows and she still does a good job, you can't really complain about that. John Barry wasn't able to score Live and Let Die due to working on a musical, and a dispute with Harry Saltzman played a part as well, so George Martin was brought in to work on the film. He worked closely with Guy Hamilton to get the feel of the score just right in addition, and only minor changes were really needed. As mentioned, he offered the title theme to the producers on the condition Paul McCartney performed it. While we did get the version by a black female vocalist as requested by Harry Saltzman, he had originally put forth Thelma Houston, BJ Arnold's version in the Fillet of Soul nightclub is very good, but I still think the Wings version is phenomenal. It's the first Bond theme by a rock band, and the first theme by a band in general as opposed to a solo artist, and it's full of adrenaline, really getting you going. It's no surprise Guns N' Roses covered it. It's still a staple of McCartney's live shows and charted very well in both the US and UK. It peaked at number 9 in the UK and number 2 in the US. It was also nominated for an Oscar for Best Original Song. Unfortunately, it lost to The Way We Were from the movie of the same name. Still, it stands out as one of the best even 50 years on. But what then do we say about The Man with the Golden Gun? Never released as a single, and perhaps for good reason, this strangely frenetic piece with an unusual style and plenty of innuendo was written by Don Black and recorded by Lulu. It's not one of the best, but it has its charms in its own way. I don't really regard it that much personally, and John Barry didn't like it that much either, considering it a rather weak piece. The innuendo-laden lyrics may not help with that feeling, although they'd be pretty tame compared to some of the songs out there at the time. Interestingly, Alice Cooper was originally asked to write the title theme before the producers went with Lulu. His song titled Man with the Golden Gun appears on the 1973 album Muscle of Love. Might need to check that out and see what it's like. Next, we might have had a disco Bond theme kicking off The Spy Who Loved Me, but the title theme more than makes up for it and even manages to stand as a summary of the series in a way. Even after all these years, nobody does it better. The title of the film does appear once through the lyrics of Nobody Does It Better, making it the first title theme to not share the name of the film. The song was composed by Marvin Hamlish, written by Carol Bayer Sager, and performed by Carly Simon. who quite simply hit it out of the park. It's remained a very popular song. It peaked at number 7 on the UK charts and 2 on the US charts, was nominated for Best Original Song, and lost, annoyingly, and even its associated soundtrack was nominated for Best Original Score, so the disco theme can't have been too bad. It was pretty big at the time. Sadly too, it lost. For a while the Bond series had a really rotten run with the Academy. Nonetheless, its staying power has been very impressive, appearing in several other films, so you know this is one of the best Bond themes out there. Maybe there are times when Bond deserves to have You're So Vain directed at him, but he has indeed continued to prove that even after 70 years, going by the release date of the novel Casino Royale, nobody does it better than James Bond. Moonraker's title theme, on the other hand, had a bit of a troubled run. Originally, Frank Sinatra was considered as the vocalist, but Johnny Mathis was eventually approached and offered the song. He proved unhappy with it and wound up withdrawing, leaving the producers seeking a replacement. They tried for Kate Bush, but since she was touring at the time, the song was offered to Shirley Bassey. While she took the opportunity, it was at short notice and she didn't really promote it, so it didn't trouble the charts. She never considered it her song and hasn't worked it into her live shows. That said, it's quite a beautiful song with a wonderful instrumentation, and performed with all her usual class and vocal style. In many ways it's better than parts of the film to which it's attached. Hal David's lyrics are quite beautiful, which is something you'd expect from one half of a legendary songwriting duo, and that music of John Barry's really is lovely. Sheena Easton is the only artist who has actually appeared in the title sequence of a James Bond film. She was asked to perform For Your Eyes Only, which was composed by Bill Conti and written by Mick Leeson. Easton's popularity carried the song to number 8 in the UK charts and 4 in the US charts, so it's a pretty solid piece as far as audiences are concerned. It's a very relaxed song, very fitting for a far more down-to-earth movie after the extravagance and occasional silliness of Moonraker. The producers originally asked Blondie to perform the title theme, but the band performed its own creation instead of the Conti theme, and their take was rejected as a result. The Conti-written song was again nominated for, and lost, an Oscar for Best Original Song. It's a simple and effective piece, quite beautiful. Not necessarily a personal favourite, but not one you can go wrong with, really. It's a fairly simple love theme in a way, but it just sounds so beautiful. The title Octopussy, despite its not at all suggestive origins once you read the source material, would probably have been a little difficult to work with. As a result, the theme for the film, All Time High, does not even mention it. It's still a very good song, coming across sort of like Nobody Does It Better, but not quite being the same. It feels a little too much like a conventional love song from the pop charts, but it does a good job nonetheless. The song was composed by John Barry and actually written by Tim Rice, who has an incredible resume, including his notable works with Andrew Lloyd Webber. Rita Coolidge was the performer. The song didn't chart particularly well, perhaps a little unusually given the songwriting prestige involved. It peaked at 75 on the UK charts and 36 in the US. There's not a lot to say about it, which I suppose is a bit disappointing. It's not bad, but it's maybe not one of the most memorable. Then we shoot from the lower reaches of the charts to the absolute heights. Until Writings on the Wall, A View to a Kill was the only Bond theme to hit number 1 on the charts. At least US and UK. It made number 2 in the UK and 1 in the US. It is the only Bond theme to be a US number 1. Duran Duran performed and wrote the theme, and Barry provided the composition. It's honestly a really, really good song, and you'll recognise a snippet of it in the melodies of Frigate in this game. Frankly, the movie isn't too crash hot, but the theme is incredible. Apparently, the band got the gig after bassist and longtime Bond fan John Taylor approached Cubby Broccoli at a party, apparently being a bit plastered at the time, and asked, when are you going to get someone decent to do one of your songs? At least he made the boast pay off. This recording was the last one made by the band's original 5 members until 2001, so it's quite a note for that lineup to finish on. I think it may still be part of their shows as well. It's seriously impressive. The Living Daylights was the last one John Barry composed for the series. It was his last film as composer as well. Originally, the title theme was difficult to prepare. The British duo Pet Shop Boys was originally approached but wanted to compose the entire score. They withdrew after learning they would only be required to do the title theme. The Norwegian pop group a-ha, the only artist from outside the UK and US to perform a Bond theme, wound up having a few disagreements with Barry over the direction the song should take. 2 versions were actually created as a result. The version preferred by the band appeared on their 1988 album Stay on These Roads, while the Barry version featured on the soundtrack and eventually all 3 of a-ha's best-of compilations. In 2006, during an interview, lead singer Paul Wakhtar, not sure about pronunciation, sorry, acknowledged the value of Barry's contributions and credited him with making it sound like a Bond theme and getting it all just right. The song didn't seem to rate on the US charts, but it hit number 5 on the UK charts. This film was the first to use a different song for the closing credits rather than a rearrangement of the title theme. One of 2 songs performed for the film by the Pretenders, If There Was a Man, is the closing song. The other song, Where Has Everybody Gone, is used as Necros's motif through the film. The Pretenders were originally considered to do the title theme, but they got a couple of really good songs out of it. With John Barry unable to score License to Kill, Michael Kamen took over and provided a different style of soundtrack for the much more serious story. Originally, Eric Clapton and original James Bond-themed guitarist Vic Flick were asked to write the theme for the film, but this ultimately did not go ahead. The surviving recording would be discovered in 2022. Gladys Knight was then chosen to perform the theme, written and composed by Narada Michael Walden, Jeffrey Cohen and Walter Afanasieff. It was based on the brass from Goldfinger, and the writers had to pay royalties to the original composers. License to Kill is the longest Bond theme, clocking in at 5 minutes 13 seconds. A version lasting 4 minutes 11 was released as the official single, and a version around 2 minutes 53 was used for the title sequence. The song would not chart in the US but reached number 6 on the UK charts. This was also the last title sequence created by Maurice Binder. Daniel Kleinman would take over from Goldeneye as Binder passed away in 1991. I don't have a lot of thoughts on this one either way. It's not bad, but it's also not a favourite. I will note the closing theme by Patti LaBelle, If You Asked Me To, was a minor hit for her but achieved prominence when covered by Celine Dion, who would go on to inflict untold suffering upon the world with that god-awful song from Titanic. As the franchise moved into the 90s, and the changes to the geopolitical sphere were felt, GoldenEye's score and title theme reflected this. The score had a heavier edge, a more industrial-inspired style which was admittedly divisive. Some pieces, such as the original tank chase theme titled A Pleasant Drive in St. Petersburg, were discarded, with John Altman and David Arch writing some more traditional music for the score. The title theme didn't miss the mark though, possessing plenty of quality. Bono and The Edge wrote the song and the late great Tina Turner performed it, adding plenty of vocal grandeur to a wonderful piece. The themes of revenge and jilted affection or betrayed loyalty fit in very well with the film, though the actual movie naturally lacks the implied romantic element of the title song. The song did not chart very well in the US but hit number 10 in the UK. It was also covered by Nicole Scherzinger for the 2010 remake of GoldenEye on the Wii, though that game didn't make as much of an impact on me because it kind of just felt like Call of Duty with a vaguely James Bond coat of paint. Swedish group Ace of Base was also involved at one point, with their song not being used and ultimately reworked as The Juvenile for their 2002 album Da Capo. Tomorrow Never Dies had its title theme set up until very late in production. The piece, originally set as the film's theme, Surrender, written by David Arnold, Don Black and David McAlmont and performed by K.D. Lang, works perfectly for the themes of the film. It's effectively Elliot Carver's theme song, a bold bragging anthem about how his media empire effortlessly controls and manipulates lives. It's pretty much the distilled essence of Rupert Murdoch and News Corp, though in fairness to Elliot Carver, even he isn't as evil as Rupert Murdoch. A number of submissions had been put to the producers, with artists such as Pulp and Mark Almond providing possible candidates. Nina Persson of Swedish group The Cardigans turned down the opportunity to compose a potential theme, citing exhaustion and overwork, and she later regretted the decision. Sheryl Crow's submission was accepted very late in production, and as a result it isn't worked into the score at all. It's an okay song, but is frankly blown away by the bold and brassy power of Surrender. Tomorrow Never Dies did not chart in the US, but made number 12 in the UK. The World Is Not Enough follows the theme of the movie's title song being strongly connected to the film's events. This song is written from the perspective of Elektra King. American band Garbage was asked by David Arnold to record the title theme. The lead singer Shirley Manson was a huge James Bond fan and was extremely happy to have the opportunity. The song is quite grand with hints of melancholy and menace, a wonderful fit for Elektra and her eventual role throughout the film. The title song reached number 11 on the UK charts, not making the US charts. It was meant to be accompanied by an appropriately themed closing song, Only Myself to Blame, which was written by David Arnold and Don Black and sung by Scott Walker. It was inspired by the failed romance between Bond and Elektra. However, director Michael Apted had felt it was too negative and Arnold replaced it with a techno remix of the James Bond theme, the only time that has actually happened. This song does appear on the soundtrack for the film though. I'm definitely not a fan of the song Die Another Day though, and it's not just because I'm not really keen on Madonna. It's perhaps because it's a bit excessive in its use of electronic stylings, kind of like the soundtrack. Reviews of said soundtrack were mixed to negative, so perhaps there's a fair bit about the film that didn't hit right. Still, it might have made its mark with a different crowd as the song charted at number 3 in the UK and 8 in the US, and Madonna was still pretty popular then. I can't remember when she butchered American Pie, and I really don't want to. There's not a lot I can really say about this one since I don't remember a lot about the music and it didn't make an impact on me. The title theme almost feels like a fever dream when you add in the title sequences, which I suppose it makes sense from a thematic point of view. It's almost some sort of madness conjured up by Bond as he tries to withstand torture in North Korea. It's just a really, really, really strange one. Casino Royale, on the other hand, had a massive impact. Chris Cornell's title theme kicks off the Craig era with a bang, providing a powerful musical motif which can be read in different ways. Is it M telling Bond he'd better make sure he's at the top of his game because the world of spycraft is ruthless and deadly and one misstep drags you to an early grave? Is Bond bitterly warning anyone who wants to get close, making sure they can really handle everything he is and his love him and leave him attitude? Or is there a bit of meta subtext in there? An announcement to the world that Bond is back and badass as ever? Whatever the message, the song is phenomenal. It's the first theme since All Time High to not share the name of the film and to not mention the film's name. That's a little bit of info for trivia purposes. The only Craig-era theme song to share a name with the movie is Skyfall. While the names of various artists were floated beforehand and many rumours circled, Cornell was confirmed as performing the song, which he wrote with David Arnold. It only charted at number 79 in the US, but number 7 in the UK, for which I must chastise the Americans for not having good enough taste there. Another Way to Die from Quantum of Solace is the first duet for the Bond series, performed by Jack White and Alicia Keys. A demo was originally released by Mark Ronson and Amy Winehouse, but the latter was not ready to record any music at the time, according to Ronson. White and Keys had been wanting to work together for a couple of years and seized the opportunity. Jack White provides the drums, Alicia Keys provides the piano, and the Memphis horns contribute the brass to the sound as well. While I admit it's not to everyone's taste, I like the lyrics involved. It's a bitter and cynical piece underneath the distinctive instrumentation, having Bond reflect on the countless seemingly innocuous things in his job which can get him killed. Jack White watched a number of opening sequences for the films to draw on inspiration. He cited On Her Majesty's Secret Service as being his favourite Bond theme, so points for good taste there. Like You Know My Name, the song did not do well in the US charts, peaking at 81, but reached number 9 in the UK charts. Oh well, Tosca's not for everyone, and neither is this song, but I like it. On the other hand, I love Skyfall. A strong yet melancholy theme, almost a harbinger of the end of an era. And in many ways Skyfall was, especially given its title theme seems to be written from M's perspective or someone like her. This song well and truly set me onto enjoying Adele's work after hearing Rolling in the Deep on radio. The film overall was scored by Thomas Newman, who had approached director Sam Mendes with a request to work on the film, only to find Mendes had been meaning to call him since they often worked together. Adele and Paul Epworth wrote the wonderful title theme, which finally broke the long dry streak the Bond film suffered at the Academy Awards, winning Best Original Song in 2012. The single release also charted at number 2 in the UK and 8 in the US. How it didn't hit number 1 is a little beyond me, but there you go. Oddly enough, it was not included in the official soundtrack. A piece called Skyfall exists in the movie's score, but plays when Bond and M reach the eponymous manor in Scotland, Bond's ancestral home. While it did reach number 1 in the UK, only reaching number 71 on the US charts, I can't say I'm the biggest fan of Writings on the Wall from Spectre. I don't know what it is, but it didn't happen to click with me. I don't dislike Sam Smith, but perhaps I'm unsure if they're the right choice for what seems to be a very melancholy song. Reviews were mixed, but hey, Smith took the song to number 1, so what do I know? Not like I can sing very well. Anyway, the overall feel of Spectre is a little on the melancholy side, and apparently Radiohead was asked to provide a possible candidate, which turned out to be even more melancholy to the point it was turned down. I admit I'd be interested in hearing that. I think it does exist. I don't remember a lot from Spectre's score, which was again composed by Thomas Newman, but even if I just can't quite click with the title theme for whatever reason, it still has a lot going for it. Credit to Smith for actually doing a pretty good job, I'll concede that. Finally, for the official Bond canon, there is yet another melancholy and sorrowful entry. No Time to Die by Billie Eilish. She was just 18 when she wrote and recorded this, teaming up on the writing with her brother Phineas O'Connell. I do like this one, not quite as much as Skyfall, but it's still good. It feels very world-weary but determined as our aging veteran drags himself through one last battering mission, unable or unwilling to stop for anything until duty is complete. Like Writings on the Wall, this song made it to number 1 on the UK charts, but fared better than its predecessor in the US, reaching number 16. The song was released as a single well before the film, which was delayed due to the COVID pandemic, and it won the Grammy for Best Song Written for Visual Media in 2021. It was still 6 months before the film's release, but was in the eligibility period. A score for the film was originally written by Dan Romer, but he departed due to creative differences, and Hans Zimmer would write the final score. The unofficial Bond themes had their own musical entries too, of course, a little something to wrap up on. The instrumental theme for the admittedly shambolic 1967 version of Casino Royale was written by Burt Bacharach and performed by Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass. I think we can honestly say that film's music was its best element. Granted, not even the prestige of Bacharach could entirely save the film, but the instrumental theme is very enjoyable and upbeat. It reached the top of the easy listening charts and number 27 on the Billboard Hot 100, so it's got something going for it. The film's best musical piece, though, is The Look of Love, sung by Dusty Springfield. This beautiful love song well and truly outperformed the film, being recorded a number of times by various artists. For Never Say Never Again, the title theme was written by the film's composer Michael Legrand, with lyrics by Alan and Marilyn Bergman. Lani Hall performed the title theme after Bonnie Tyler turned it down, not liking its style. Legrand's score for the film has been oft criticised. Apparently James Horner was the first choice of Jack Schwartzman and Irvin Kershner, but he was unavailable. Schwartzman later claimed Sean Connery vetoed the choice of Horner. John Barry would turn it down out of loyalty to Eon Productions. I don't really think much of the theme for Never Say Never Again, but oddly I do like Casino Royale's music. Different strokes for different folks and all. This is a quick rundown of each song. There are probably bigger stories behind each one, but I hope it gives you a little bit of extra appreciation of everything that goes on. There's plenty to the score. For example, there are some really, really good pieces in Goldfinger, and indeed I love the score for Goldeneye, but the title themes will always be the most memorable. Yes! Right on time! So many opportunities, so many moments were just close. But we got there. That's not bad. So, let's go back to our menu. We are invisible. So we'll put turbo mode on because I like turbo mode, paintball mode, and let's go back into the archives, shall we? I will demonstrate our cheat. So, fortunately took me a lot less time than invincibility did. So, now... Okay, so the guards are coded to provide that dialogue. Notice how they're not doing anything. I can get right up in his face, make fun of his moustache, and shoot him in the head. Nothing. We're out. We're moving much faster. And yeah, we are invisible. The guards can hear our gunshots, but they won't necessarily see us. So we can just sort of wander around and do whatever it is we please. We have free run of the entire archives, again, which I showed in Agent. We do have to be careful because while we're invisible, we can still be hurt. So see, guards will respond to their friends dying sometimes. Now, what's something we can blow up? See, we were just briefly hurt there. Obviously, being invisible isn't a big advantage, in some senses. But, like I said, free reign to just roam around and do whatever we please. We can do some very silly things when we combine it with other cheats. But invisibility comes with a price. Now, let's go into this room. Natalia won't respond. Mission critical characters to whom we have to speak will not respond. So... Natalia is just going to stand here. If I fire right by... She's not responding. Alright, maybe I shot her in the head by accident. I didn't think the hitbox was that big, but that was not quite my intention. But yeah, invisibility will stop you from communicating with mission-critical characters, but you can muck around and do whatever you want. See, here's Mishkin, doing nothing. There goes Mishkin. And we can basically walk out here. We can aim. So they'll respond to gunfire. Running around frantically trying to work out what's going on. They'll stop after a while, but they have absolutely no idea. So there we are, I've already crippled this guy. And they will do their little animations as well. It's a really good opportunity to see the various animations the guards actually have. Like that there. But yeah, it's a party. We've just got guards milling around. And yep, one's scratching his butt. Great. It's basically just a really good excuse to try and torture guards. That was a slightly undramatic end. I wanted to see if I could get one of the more complicated death animations. Of course, it's much easier to deal with them with slow animation. Oh, hello, we've got somebody else joining the party. And he's going to scratch his butt. Maybe if I crouch. Yeah, basically this is what invisibility lets you do. You can muck around and kneecap guards. Shoot them in the feet. Oh, that's a grenade. Where did that land? There. Oh well, that's pretty much it to invisibility. We get to fall around and do absolutely nothing. Now, I might take the opportunity to actually get a little bit of... Due to the discrepancy between recording and editing, I might actually take the opportunity to get a bit of footage for Surface because I gabbled on a little long. But there you go. That is how invisibility works. Thank you very much for joining me. Until next time, this is Red 2, returning to base.